Okay, we're going to give folks just one more minute as folks are joining on now. I'm seeing the numbers go up. If you're just joining us, then please make sure to go to your chat box and put in your name and your agency, any department you're in, and your email address so we have that information for our records. So we'll just give it just one more minute as I see folks joining on. Okay, why don't we begin our meeting? I know our time is short, so we will just continue as folks come into the meeting. If you're just joining the meeting, I saw a few of you log on. Please take a moment to go to the chat box and put in your name, your agency, your email address so that we have that for our records. I think we'll just start our meeting. I'm so happy that everyone has been able to attend today's meeting. It's been a lot. It feels like it's been a really long time since all of us have had the opportunity to get together. I just want to take a quick moment to look at the agenda, what we're going to really cover today. Of course, we're doing the welcome now. I'm welcoming every last one of you. This is awesome. But we will start our meeting with a prayer. Also, just as a reminder, if you are not speaking, then please be sure to mute your speaker. It is up in the box. There should be a mute button. Looks like a microphone. Make sure you press it so it's red or orange so we don't get any background noise or feedback. Like that. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate you putting on your mute button there. Okay, so why don't we start with our prayer? It's up on the screen if you just want to follow along with me. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when schools are closed remember those that have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those that have no place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember all those that have no home. And during this time, when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. Amen. Amen. Okay, I'm going to ask folks. I'm getting a lot of feedback, so please make sure that your button is muted. It should be in that box up there, and your little microphone should be orange or red. And again, if you're just a number of folks just joined on, please take a moment to write your name in the chat box. Make sure that you give us your name, your agency, and your email address. Okay, let's take a look at what we're going to do today. All right, so we have what we'd like to do is go through kind of what's new, what's on everyone's plate. We're anxious to hear how everybody is doing, what your agencies are facing, some of the challenges that you're going through, maybe some of the successes that you've had, and how we can be of help to you. Simone, you want to go to the next slide? All right, so I think the way we're going to do this is certainly just one at a time if you're able to. I think the numbers are really tenable where folks can just speak up for a moment. Make sure that if you're not talking, that your mute button is pressed. And, you know, again, we want to take a moment to listen to you, to understand what's going on in your world under this COVID-19 environment. Anybody want to start? I can pick on somebody on the screen. Okay, Nicole, I see you.
I had a feeling when you said that. Yeah, so in Home of Thibodaux, we've been doing fairly well. Our numbers are not as scary as they were at the beginning. So we've been able to pull together. We backed off on our food banks because most of our volunteers are retired or elderly. And we did mass distributions. And at this point, we've distributed over 100,000 pounds of food in 5 distributions to, I think, close to 3,000 families. And that was just throwing up, you know, some tables in the middle of a parking lot and distributing food. In addition to kind of appointment-based with our curbside pickup with our food banks. Our individual and family assistance, we usually only do rent and electricity and utilities, but we added mortgages in because a whole new group of people are experiencing some financial difficulties. And our residential program, we only have one. It's our halfway house for men. They kind of shut down intakes for a while, but we're picking them back up now that things are kind of getting open around here. But that's pretty much us. I think our biggest challenge has been balancing out between acting and protecting others. And so we didn't, through this, we didn't always know when, you know, to have a massive food distribution versus hold off until we don't spread it. And so that's kind of been the question we've asked at everything we've done is how much service to do and how much to kind of hunker down and avoid spreading. And so that's been our biggest challenge, I'd say. But we're really proud. We got our 5 distributions were spread out throughout our diocese, which is not a common reaction for us. So we were able to go to all the corners of our small little diocese. And it's been phenomenal to see the reaction and the volunteerism that's happened through all this. So that's us.
That's great. And there's no staff or anybody who's gotten sick?
Sorry.
You're muted. Okay.
Okay. No, we have not had any staff. I think in our diocese we've had. I've been informed of 1 priest, but for the most part, unfortunately, our spread has been contained mostly in our nursing homes, and so we've been doing. We're trying to figure out a way to help out with that, but public spread hasn't been that bad in our area. And in our diocese, we haven't had. I don't think we've had, but maybe 1 staff member other than the priest in the whole diocese.
Great, thank you, Nicole. And how about any help that we can provide you in what you're doing, whether it's disaster operations or CCUSA in general, or even the network?
I have to say what you guys doing is amazing, or already amazing. That chart to help us prepare for disaster season is just extremely helpful. And that's kind of where we are now, is we're kind of moving our focus toward, I mean, we know the hurricanes are coming. And so we're just moving forward our focus toward that and how to prep for that, given the pandemic is still in place. And so as much information about that and what other organizations are dealing with that would be really helpful. So that's kind of where we're headed.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole.
No problem. Thank you.
And thanks for being first. Okay, somebody want to go next?
I'd be willing to. Sister Maureen Sullivan.
Hi, Sister Maureen. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm from Catholic Family and Community Services, Catholic Charities in Paterson, New Jersey. And we've been in the hot spot of the epidemic, so it's been a challenge for us. In our own city here, we have over 6,000 cases and several hundred deaths. And so our agency has really been challenged to continue our services at the same time as really hunkering down. We have seen an increase in our food pantry from an average of 5,000 clients a month to over almost 11,000 now. We also, because we have a lot of senior projects in the city and the seniors are most vulnerable, we are now serving 600 families in two senior projects. We include every other week that we package and deliver. Also, our senior program in those buildings has been working outreach the clients, so because they are isolated, so we have tips that we deliver to puzzles and other. Regularly call them every day so that they feel connected. Those phone calls are short in the beginning, and why are you calling? But they're now longer because people are more wanting to be engaged and being connected. We also have seen a significant uptick in the people who are homeless and whom we've had to provide shelter for. And so we have people in hotels, and now we're providing food for them on a regular basis. We've connected with some people in Paterson to cook meals, and we deliver them, plus we deliver food. And so it's an ongoing challenge, and as the numbers of cases, thank God, are beginning to diminish, we're looking at how we can continue practicing safe distances, but also meeting their needs. And the biggest issue is finding the funding to carry all these. So any resources that you've given us in terms of pursuing different funding resources has been very helpful.
So, Sister Maureen, how is your staff holding up? That's a pretty heavy load that you're carrying there.
Well, first of all, I coordinate volunteers, and our volunteers dropped off precipitously because many of them were seniors. Some of them came through programs such as colleges and community service, where they discontinued the sending out of volunteers. And so we have been sending out a lot, and we've gotten some good responses from other organizations that people began to look for places to volunteer, and then they connected with us. So right now we're doing pretty well with volunteers. We have a staff of about 700 through the 3 Catholic Charities agencies, and I think we've had about 15 cases of COVID in the staff, but none fatal, thank God, and a number of them have been recovered. But the biggest challenge is trying to meet the daily needs and the demands as they keep increasing, because Paterson is a very low income area, mostly employed by single businesses, and they've been shut down for 2 months now. So we're continuously trying to meet these. We used to have a criteria for people coming to the food pantry. Now, if they're hungry, they just come.
Very interesting. Thank you. And are your folks are Diocese of Paterson or Catholic Charities is not back to the office yet, are you?
No, the majority of people have been working from home. The people who have direct service, we have 11 homes that we provide for developmentally disabled. They're functioning there, but hunkered down. We have a large drug rehabilitation program, Straight and Narrow, and they have been working, and the challenge there is to try to maintain the fact that the staff who are coming in are safe, so that they're not bringing it in, because that's a large facility with 400 residents. In a lot of our other instances, the majority of us have been working from home, class teachers through Zoom, seniors through phone, because the majority of them don't have some other connection. but the majority of us are working from home, which is a challenge.
Wow, thank you very much. Is there any other way that, I mean, we've been trying to support or send resources as we can, but is there any other resources or assistance that you need our help with?
No, right now we're looking at how we're going to begin to try to open up, and whether we'll have some staff in and some staff not come in, and alternate staff, and what kind of screens are we putting up between client space and us. But any directives that you can give that other people are using would be very helpful.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, if you're not talking, to please put your speaker on mute. There's a button up top. It should be red or orange. Is there someone else that'd like to go next?
I would like to go next.
Who's that?
This is Melissa from Sonoma County.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So actually we do Napa, Lake, Sonoma, and Mendocino counties in California. And it's nice to connect with all of you. I'm really happy to be able to do that. So we have a bunch of new things actually happening with this COVID response. We're now doing a lot more rental assistance that is directly for COVID related issues, people with job loss and lower income and that kind of thing. So that is new for us, part of our disaster case management response and relief efforts that we're doing. In our Sonoma County office, we have a memory care center for our seniors who might have Alzheimer's or those kinds of things. And we had to close that completely. So that's new for us. It's never been closed before, so that's unfortunate. And it's closed indefinitely until we know we can open back up safely for those folks. So what we're doing with them is we are doing our Home Alone program, which is calling. We do hundreds of phone calls, 365 days a year to homebound seniors or homebound people. So we've seen a huge increase in that, those calls, which is also a little troublesome to increase our volunteer network there. So people are getting stretched thin. But with our senior services program, we've decided to deliver meals directly to those folks who can't come into our offices, which is also delivering meals to their caregivers and those kinds of things. So that's something new we haven't done before. And we are also doing meal deliveries, actually not meals, but grocery deliveries to folks that can't get to our food distributions. So we've seen a huge increase in our food distributions. We do about 12 or 13 food distributions now throughout the month, and that's seen an increase of a minimum of 500 brand new people that we've never seen before. So it's a pretty big deal to see all those new people coming. And then in addition to that, all the people that need the food delivered because they can't get to the food distributions because they've lost transportation or they live in geographically remote areas, and that kind of thing. So it's been interesting. We also do our shelters, and we've had to decrease the numbers in our shelters and use hotels, just like lots of other people have. So we've been doing a lot of that, but something that's we haven't had to do before is respond to COVID while also doing disaster case management, while also doing preparedness because we have major fire season coming up. So where we have all of the things all at once, and that is new for us, and it's a little bit challenging, especially with a lot of people working from home. And just also training our staff to be able to do those things has been a little bit challenging, but we're getting through it. So I'm happy to hear what everybody else is doing. Thank you.
So you're still working from home as well?
Yeah, so if it's not an essential service like our food distributions or things like that, then we are staying home and working. Our offices can't open yet. But if it's an essential service, if we do things like our food program or our sheltering staff, those kinds of things, we do work in the offices or the shelters. And we wear masks and gloves and all that kind of safety stuff.
Good, great to know. Yeah. Anywhere else that we can be supportive of you?
This is Glenn Leach in Davenport, the Diocese of Davenport.
Yes, Glenn.
Our situation is probably unique to all of the others on the line right now, in that our entire charity staff consists of 4 people, 2 of whom are the legal counselors for our immigration office. So obviously we don't do a lot of direct service. Instead, we have, as we have done for years now, worked through our local co-ed. I'm a member of our local co-ed, and in fact, I'm a member of the board of our state co-ed. But what we have done through the local co-ed is we've been able to bring virtually all of the nonprofit agencies and government agencies that exist within the 4-county area in both Illinois and Iowa that our co-ed covers. And we've been able to bring them all to a virtual table so that we've been able to level resources, redirect volunteers, and do a lot of other things. We're very fortunate that we have had the more than active participation of both our Community Foundation and our United Way. And in fact, I should also add to the Riverboat Development Authority that gets the funds from the riverboat gambling. But with those organizations working together, we've been able to mount a program of local disaster funding, which reached the $2 million level, which has gone to support a lot of the different agencies within the area of our co-ed. Now, for the diocese itself, we have a diocese that covers 22 counties of southeastern Iowa and includes 5 packing houses in different locations. So those are the hot spots for our COVID problems. The state of Iowa itself has only had about just under 18,000 cases and 464 deaths. So compared to many of the other folks on the line, we've been very blessed in that respect, but we're very concerned about the recent openings and what that might portend, because it's beginning to reach even into our rural counties, and the rural counties constitute the majority of our diocese. The chancery itself is totally shut down. Among other reasons is that we have 10 retired priests who reside at the chancery building itself. That there are separate apartments that are a part of the chancery. And so virtually all offices of the chancery are working from home at the moment. And let's see what else would be important. Again, the challenges with respect to the rural areas include the fact that I was really struck by our opening prayer, because we are fortunate in this area. We have excellent internet service, we have excellent resources, financial resources, we have a multiplicity of nonprofit and government agencies, all of which are largely lacking in the rural areas. There are parts of our diocese that do not have reliable internet service. There are 1 or 2 pockets where you can't even get a cell phone signal. So there are some real challenges, but again, what we've been able to do through the COAD and through the state VOAD is to, again, try to level resources. For instance, our county emergency coordinator for Scott County, by unanimous consent, became the point of contact for all purchase and distribution of PPE within the area, which was a very critical thing to prevent us from fighting with each other for potential resources. So that's where we are at the present time.
That's a great insight. I appreciate it, Glenn. You know what? I see a couple of people here that'd be interesting also to hear from. Julianne, I really hate to put you on the spot, but you are in New York City, and I would love to hear what you're doing.
That I am.
Hello.
I go outside maybe 30 minutes a week.
Oh my gosh.
I live in a tiny apartment. If you can see my video, I'm in my bedroom.
No, we can't see your video. Your
Oh.
video
Oh,
is your
it's
camera
on.
on? Make sure the camera thing is green.
It is.
Oh.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me do it again. Oh,
There
that
you
might
are.
be it. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So my agency, Catholic Charities Community Services of the Archdiocese of New York, is quite large, and we have about 500 staff in multiple building locations across 5, I guess the 3 boroughs of Manhattan, Staten Island, Manhattan, the Bronx, and then the lower Hudson Valley. So Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens serves Brooklyn and Queens, and that's where the majority of their offices are. So we have a lot of variety in our programs, and has to be out in the field every day, which buildings are still operating, which folks can kind of rotate and spend a couple times a week in the office and then spend the rest of the week at home. And then folks like me who are blessed enough to be able to work from home the majority of the time. I have not been in my office since like March 18th. And that feels like it was last year. So much has happened. Okay, so there are some programs that, like I said, have to be out in the field all the time. So that would be our 24/7 residences for folks with severe and persistent mental illness. We have seen a few deaths of the clients in some of those programs. They match the percentages of like people who are in congregate care settings. So, but we have seen a few. We also have lots of food pantries, and so those have been utilized in the grab and go model. And so they're out in the field. What else? So a lot of our Alianza programs, those are with youth, and many of them are within Department of Education buildings. And so obviously once the schools were closed here, then those folks, we kind of repurposed them for what they've been doing the past 9 weeks or so. So some of those folks have been utilized in our food pantries because we saw an increase in demand and we're keeping those open. And so we've been able to utilize some of that as volunteers for the pantry or staff for the pantry. Also in New York City, the city started providing like childcare assistance to essential workers. So some of our Alianza folks were also repurposed to serve in those settings. They're calling them regional enrichment centers, and they're specifically for people who are essential workers who have to go to work but need someone to watch their children during the day since they're not going to be in school. What else? I am currently the co-chair of the board for New York City VOAD. So that's where I could use the most help because I feel very responsible for coordinating that whole structure. and it's a lot of work, and that's actually where the majority of my time is being spent. I am still doing like trainings and other supportive roles within Catholic Charities, but my major focus and what keeps me up at night is making sure that New York City BOET is operating and communicating and coordinating and all that jazz.
That's a huge responsibility, Julianne.
Yeah, it kind of never became as clear as it was now. It's like in preparedness, it's like, oh, I'm just co-chairing this committee. Sure, I'll do this thing. And
Well,
then
maybe,
it's like, no, I'm actually kind of running another organization.
yeah. And maybe we can have a separate call offline to see how we can better support you in that role.
Would love that.
Yeah. I want to just take a moment and put Debbie Snap on the spot. You come from a very different part of the country too, so I'd love to hear just a quick synopsis of how it's going in your end of the world.
Sure. We're continuing to work from home as much as we can, doing what
And
we need to
where's home?
do. Well, Dodge City, Kansas is home.
Okay.
Dodge City, Kansas, Diocese of Dodge City, 28 counties of Southwest Kansas. So Dodge City, Garden City, Great Bend are where we have offices. Our diocese has 7% of the Kansas population, and we have almost 50% of the positive cases in Kansas. We have 4 beef packing plants and in 3 communities, and that's where the cases are primarily targeted. But they're also testing at an extremely high level. And so there's a lot of asymptomatic people that are around and moving through the community, and so it continues to go. We still get in Dodge City, a population of 35,000 people, we get about between 20 and 50 new cases a day. So it continues to be a lot. I have to say Amy Falcon is on the call, and I think Brooke Lopez is on the call. They both work for our agency, and they are all doing a terrific job of creating a helpline, a centralized intake system, assigning case managers on the spot, doing everything by phone. We're helping people get their stimulus checks, apply for SNAP benefits, Medicaid applications, all the things that we can do to make sure that people are getting access to the public benefits that they are eligible for, because we have an extremely large immigrant population, a number of undocumented people, and those are the folks that will fall through the cracks and needing some help. So if Amy and Brooke have anything that they want to add, I would certainly invite them to share.
I'll go ahead and share a little bit. We have had, we probably get emails and calls just about daily, I think, for people needing help. And we had a email created for people to email that need help, and then one of our phone numbers we use as well. And so when those come in, we just get them assigned right away. A lot of the calls have been that they don't have their stimulus check yet, or their unemployment benefits, they don't know how to do that. But we have had, we're starting to get more calls now for rent. I think we had our first mortgage one today. And so we expect that to get worse, I think, but so far we've been able to do all of it from home pretty much. I know there are some of the case managers that are delivering things to people from our non-food pantry. However, we do have some food now. For the first time, we are delivering some food out of our Dodge City and Garden City offices. So they're running around doing that as well. But I expect these calls to start increasing probably in the next few weeks.
Great. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
It's Philomena.
Yeah. Hi, Philomena.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just an update on what we've been doing, through Catholic Charities Diocese of Venice down in the southwest end of Florida. We've distributed actually 383,000 plus pounds of food. We went out to 34,462 individuals as of Saturday. There are some of our areas that are doing calls on Saturday as well. Sorry about that. One of the things we did when we initially started was created three 800 numbers for 3 of our regions. And we're taking calls on the need for food distribution. The other thing we did is mental health, telemental health counseling. And then the last one was on financial assistance, where mental health counseling on video or phone, we've done pretty well considering many of our clients, unfortunately, especially those that are immigrants or migrants who are unable to have phones or internet system. We've done pretty well where phones are concerned. We're at 483 in terms of phone calls that do counseling, and then 348 that are in as part of the video conferencing. That's really been really good. The financial assistance, initially we didn't start very quickly. We didn't have as much of the money available, and now we've United Way helped us out a little bit in the northern area of our diocese, and we're hoping that we can still continue doing that. We've been really working hard towards financial assistance. So rent is unbelievable. The need for rent and utilities has been really ongoing and a struggle for a lot of people. One of the things we're noticing now in the migrant communities is that we are in need of cleaning supplies for them. They're getting, they're being diagnosed. And so as a result, the need for cleaning supplies is a must. We're also looking at doing some stuff with just in terms of just doing, one of the things I think I heard earlier was the Home Alone program. We're trying to start that. We lost about 30 individuals in terms of staffing prior to the, when we first started with COVID, and we put them on furlough. And then when we got our SBA loan, we ended up bringing them back, and then we had to repurpose them because many of them were in our daycare centers and or childcare programs that are not having, that we're just not servicing them. So what we did is repurpose them and have them now looking at doing some things with making the phone calls and also helping with development, just making phone calls and thank yous, which we didn't really get a chance to do prior to that. As an agency, we've done fairly well in terms of having people provide donations to food distribution. Our social networking in terms of social media has increased, and as a result, we've done very well with that. We're distributing food via a car line. So people are just coming in their cars. We're putting food in the trunk of their car and they're taking off. The state of Florida, sometimes it just makes me laugh in terms of what they think we need versus what is reality. I'll give you an example. On Thursday, Friday last week, we got pellets and pellets and pellets of these boxes, and we thought, wow, this is awesome. We're going to be able to distribute them right off the trucks. And in them was a granola bar, an apple, and I think one little starch, and that was the extent of what was in this pretty decent box. So we were trying to educate, most people in terms of what we need. We'd rather have them give us donations as opposed to, so this way we can buy in bulk. And what we're buying in bulk has been, the most, the needed items: rice, beans, maseca for a lot of our Latino population, peanut butter, cereals, pasta. So, but if we can buy them in bulk, that's so much better. And people are understanding that. Through social media, we've been trying to educate. So that's where we seem to be right now.
That's great, Philomena. Thank you very much. I want to pick on somebody who's probably not expecting this at all. Nadim, are you on the phone?
It shows he just left is what I think it said.
Did he just leave?
Yes.
Yeah.
A note just popped up indicating she left.
Nadim?
Yes.
Yeah, he's gone, huh? So Nadim, I think it was very interesting. I noticed he was on the list, is actually from the equivalent of Catholic Charities in Pakistan. And so he's been interested in what we're doing so that he can manage this where he is. And I think it's just a great, showing that, you know, this isn't just a U.S. thing. This is a world thing. And this is the only disaster I think I've ever seen where everybody in the world, not just in our own families, where everyone in the world is a disaster survivor and having to react to the disaster at the same time. It's just phenomenal and mind-boggling, all in one. I want to just one more that we can talk about here. Andrea, are you on the line there? Andrea, are you there and just on mute? Maybe she's not. Okay, I see that she's on the list, but maybe she's tied up. Okay, can we just have one more update before we move on with our agenda?
Elizabeth McClendon from Newark, New Jersey, Catholic Charities, Archdiocese of Newark.
Oh, yes. Welcome, Newark. Let's hear it.
Basically, what the sister said from Patterson, we're close neighbors, so we're probably doing the same thing. But we're noticing with this covert, a lot of our undocumented are afraid and have been afraid to come out to even acknowledge that they are suffering or have family members that are suffering. So we have our staff are going to those homes and just doing a knocking on the door sort of thing and just bringing food to them and just checking up on what we do a wellness checkup on a lot of them. And we're finding that some of them are very sick, but trying to coax them out of the house to get to the emergency room just to get services. We've done some of the telehealth with some of them. It's, you know, it's heart-wrenching to see a mother who is sick and being taken care of by her 9-year-old because they are so afraid of going out of the household and so afraid that if they go, they will not be coming back. We've been dealing with a lot of that in the Newark area. We've been successful at some. A lot of it we've been just bringing the food, getting them maintained, doing the telehealth, getting some of them to just trust us enough to make sure that they're getting the basic needs to survive in the households and when we do this wellness. So we're dealing with that. In addition to that, we have all of our shelters, just like everyone else is, in terms of getting them, doing the social distancing, downsizing our shelters in some of them, because we have 3 of the largest shelters in New Jersey in doing that. And we also have what we call the mobile crisis stabilization unit, whereas if there's crisis in the family, and these are with children, not adults, that we have to respond within 24 hours. The sad part of it is that we know that there are crises that are happening with some of these kids that are in these households, but our numbers have been extremely low. And that kind of frightens us in a way because we are kind of concerned about what is happening with the shut-in and the isolations within the family. So we're trying to reach out as much as possible to our Care Plus agencies to make sure that we're not missing anything and that we can work with the police departments to say if they have any calls to let us become involved. We're seeing, like everybody else seeing, our food pantries have increased, continue to increase. We're bringing food. We're cooking food for those. We have a program, what we call in our workforce development, extended employees for those individuals that have disabilities. And some of them, because of the families and because of the low economics, we bring food to them that is cooked because of where they live and because of the disparities in which families that they live in. So we make sure that they're taken care of every day. We have a behavioral health program that we're seeing an increase. We even have partial care programs where clients are so afraid of being isolated, being alone. We open up every day a week, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day, where we go and pick them up and they come to program. They participate in program because they are so afraid of being isolated. And a lot of them don't know, you know, with all of this that's happening, it happens, listen, for the best of us, it happens so quick. So we know how we're shaken and upset about it. So the population in which we are dealing with our behavior health, it has put a double whammy on some of them, to the fact that some of them just cannot stay home. So our staff does come out. We are open in our partial care program, and we do see them on a daily basis to help them to adjust. Just like everybody else, rent is extremely high in where we live at. We have rental programs, but we're starting to see getting more calls because now everything is at a standstill with evictions. But we're working with the clients to get them to be in a proactive, as we talk about eviction, so that we can help them have getting them to work with the landlords and landlords to work with us to making sure that those are addressed. So Essex County is the second largest New Jersey state with people that are dying from COVID. So we're pretty busy. I'm in the office every day, as well as my CEO, and we have stagnated staff. We have dedicated staff that are in our therapeutic group homes that are there 24/7, 7 days a week, as well as the shelters. And, you know, at the grace of God, everybody is doing, you know, as fairly well as they can, and we are very blessed. Even through this whole thing, but we're making it.
Yeah, it sounds like just absolutely mind-boggling, very amazing. And you and everybody else that we've heard from has just performed miracles in my book. Absolutely. I do want to just end this section with just a couple of announcements. And some of you who are diocesan directors, if you're going to be on the call tomorrow, you'll hear this again, but you get first crack at the news. First of all, we received information from our disaster contacts at FEMA last week that they have acquired a very large donation of 20 million masks. And as such, they have decided that the best thing they can do would be to distribute it to non-governmental organizations. So Catholic Charities will benefit greatly with about 600,000 masks. They are sending to each agency, they're paying for all the shipping, and they will be sending each of your agencies masks. The minimum amount that you'll get is 2,000 if you're in a place where it is a lower amount of activity. And the highest amount that you'll get is 11,000, based on, again, where you are in the level of activity. You can save them for now. You can use them, but I guarantee you there's going to be a round two. So this is something that you might just want to consider as you're going about your work, that you will be ahead of the game, because when round two comes, there may not be any masks around. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to ask everybody, if you're not speaking, to mute your phones. I am getting a little bit of feedback. Okay, the second piece of news kind of related to this is also, again, FEMA reached out to us. They have acquired a large amount of hand sanitizer that actually comes in 55-gallon drums. And so we are receiving about 12 of those 55-gallon drums, and are putting together bottles of hand sanitizer that will also go out to each agency. Right now, what it looks like it'll be about 2 gallons of hand sanitizer and 38-ounce bottles for each agency. We're still looking at numbers and seeing how that goes, but we know that in some places that's just going to be a drop in the bucket, where other places it'll be, solve all their needs. So, but we're trying to acquire these items as quickly as we can, so that we can better serve and support the work that you obviously are just performing amazing feats on the ground. So we'll continue to do that. In the meantime, our office too does remain closed physically, but we are all working from home. Sister Donna has made the decision to keep our offices closed for now until September 1st. And so that's when we'll be moving along. Oh, no, you can keep it there, Simona. Thank you. So we want to move on to our next piece, and this is about something that actually Nicole referenced right at the beginning, which is our disaster matrix. So if we could just take a look at that slide really quick, we can talk about this for a moment. So this is about our new disaster reality. This is about all those things that folks were talking about. I heard a few people reference it, that there's going to be disasters, and these disasters have never been easy to manage, but it's now going to be even worse under a COVID-19 reality. So the staff and I sat and put together an extremely extensive document. I think it's about 20 pages or so of things that should be considered. The document itself has 4 columns. The first one talks about, you know, what is your usual disaster response? What is the usual reaction that happens when a disaster hits, whether it's a fire or a flood or a hurricane or a snowstorm, whatever it is, there's some basics. And so the first column will look at what that basic is. The second column looks at, okay, what's happened in our COVID-19 reality? What's changed in our world? Okay, what is happening differently? How are things being processed? What are some of the challenges? There's no toilet paper, there's no food, now there's no meat. There's all sorts of crazy things that are happening under COVID-19. So if you take a usual disaster and you marry that with COVID-19, you then get your third column, which is our prediction or our crystal ball based on our experience on what could very likely happen if you mix columns 1 and 2 together, okay? And so this gives you an idea of things that you might need to think about for your own neighborhood, for your own agency. And then finally, the last column is mitigation activities, are things that we see on our end that might be good to think about doing or looking at ahead of time before you get that hurricane or that flood or that wildfire, so that you have an opportunity to at least try and be a little prepared. And, you know, for those that have small agencies, like we heard from Glenn, who participate in a VOAD setting, that's fine. All these things are relevant there too. It has to be considered. The link that you see in this presentation, we'll share the link afterwards along with the PowerPoint. When you press that link, you will come to both the full chart, which you see a copy of it there, but also there's a worksheet. The worksheet itself only has columns 1 and 2 completed, because we also recognize that a disaster in Rapid City, South Dakota is not the same as in St. Louis, Missouri. And so there has to be a reality check on your end on what's applicable and what's not, what's going to happen, what won't happen. But we give you at least the basics. So we provide for you in one link. When you click on this link, it'll bring you to a page that has 2 links. The first link will be the actual chart that is fully complete for you to look at. And then the second link will be the worksheet that you yourselves can download to start thinking about how this is going to play out should you have a disaster. And of course, like they say every year, it's going to be a major hurricane season. So I think that that's something that has to be considered. Along these same lines, though, Zach has just finished pulling together information. Last week, FEMA came out with a document that basically said, hey, just want to let you folks know, under COVID-19, this is how we're going to operate. This is how we're going to do our disaster response as FEMA, as the national emergency management organization. And it's a long document. It's like 60 or 70 pages long. And so Zach has bravely gone through all of it and has pulled out information that is relevant for Catholic charities and agencies to know. Like one thing we were discussing this morning that he read is that evacuations in hurricane places are going to go much slower because you can't have a full busload of people. So how is that going to work for those that are in these hurricane locations? So I think it's very good information. We'll share it amongst everybody. And as Zach has stated, while this was written for hurricanes, it is also something that is relevant for other disasters too, because if FEMA is not going to come out for a hurricane, they're not going to come out for a wildfire, they're not going to come out for a flood, et cetera, et cetera. So this is good information that we will also share as a follow-up to this call. Okay, I think with this, why don't we move on to our next portion? Simona, can you, there we go. And here we're gonna do some updates for you, give you some information. The other staff of disaster operations would love to be able to tell you some of their information. So for now, I think I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Project Comeback Texas project that we've got going right now. We have some of our Texas, actually our Houston colleagues on this call today, so thank you for joining. But for those of you who have not heard anything about Project Comeback Texas, it's a pretty unique project. It's a consortium of 5 different agencies that came together in response to the August 2018 Hurricane Harvey. And those agencies, as you can see on the slide, I'll just repeat those for you. It's UMCOR and it's IGNA Relief, of course, Catholic Charities USA, Lutheran Disaster Services, and St. Vincent de Paul. And these 5 agencies together have opened over 13,000 cases to date. And really, thanks to all the efforts from case management, have realized over $134 million for clients. So it's an amazing project. Just the collaboration of all 5 agencies has really been a special opportunity. The partners from Catholic Charities are Catholic Charities Corpus Christi, Catholic Charities of Southeast Texas in Beaumont, and of course Catholic Charities of Galveston, Houston. And those 3 partners represent Catholic Charities USA. And together, we've opened over 4,000 cases. And again, thanks to their case management efforts, they have realized over $30 million for their clients. So just really, really amazing work. Where we stand right now, we're due to have this program end in August, but we have applied for an extension from FEMA and we're waiting to hear. You can imagine the challenges of doing disaster case management in COVID, and I just have to give a shout out to our agencies. In spite of all those challenges, they've been doing amazing work, making sure these cases are getting ready to close, but more important, doing the well checks of their clients, because this has been a difficult time for them. So with that, if anybody has any questions, if not, I also want to share with you some other work that we've been doing. It's our disaster case management training. And we have a couple colleagues on the line that have been very much part of this project from the beginning, Daniel Altino and Julianne Pinelli. But this has been a project that's been going on. We've been working on this for a little while. It's really a 2-day training, and we call it our Disaster Case Management Essentials. And basically the whole goal of this training is to really provide disaster case managers the knowledge and the skills necessary to begin disaster case management. We have done this training 7 times since 2018, and oftentimes it's been from an internal partner request and external, such as FEMA, state VOADs, territorial governments, and Catholic Charities agencies. And this has also been provided at AID. And on May 27th and 28th, which is tomorrow and Thursday, Zach and I will be co-training this in the Commonwealth of Saipan. And this is the first time we've done this particular training virtually. So, you know, that's going to be interesting and exciting, no doubt. And soon to be finalized and posted to our COP portal will be this presentation, our instructor guide, and our participant resource handbook. So we're really excited about that. And, you know, if you have any questions, reach out. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Diane. And if folks do have questions or more information, you certainly can write it in the chat box as part of this, and then we can get back to you afterwards.
Yes. So thank you, Kim. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jen Dyer, who is the Program Director for Agency Capacity Initiative.
Thank you, Diane. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the Agency Capacity Initiative, I just wanted to very briefly share with you that this is a grant funded by Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies, and by their definition is focused on a specific 10-state region in the Midwest. The work that we do with this funding has been focused on partnering with 5 Catholic Charities agencies to help resource them to build their capacity to interweave disaster resilience type activities into the work that they already do. And so we kind of discovered that capacity building during a disaster is a bit like capacity building on steroids. The agencies that are part of the Agency Capacity Initiative have really been able to seize the moment, the energy and attention of pastors, parishioners, community partners, and volunteers who may otherwise not be so interested in disaster work. And so one of the things that has really come out of this has been the benefit of cross-training. One of the things that we've been focusing on for the past 2.5 years is just how we kind of help make disaster response part of the lifeblood of the agency, part of the overall mission. And so the agencies participating in this grant have been focused on getting all staff trained up in disaster basics and adding it to their job descriptions. And I think that all 5 agencies would agree that that cross-training work that they have done over the past few years really allowed their agencies to nimbly respond to the COVID disaster pandemic. So that's just one thing I wanted to share. The work that we do is focused in this 10-state region, but our goal is to always be sharing the resources and the training materials that come out of it. And so one of those training materials is the Catholic Disaster Preparedness Program, which many of you have heard me speak about before. This is a 3-part disaster training broken out into 5 videos. The first 2 parts have been completed and are available through our resource page, and the final video, which focuses on sharing our gifts, how parishes can identify what resources they can share during help respond to a disaster, will be finalized at the end of June. So we are excited to share that. And once the final video has been completed, we do plan to translate all of the videos into Spanish. So if anyone has any questions about that, please feel free to email me or put something in the chat box and I can get back to you. The Agency Capacity Initiative is a 3-year grant, and our current grant cycle wraps up at the end of this year. And so as we look to the future, what we are proposing to our funder to do is to look at the linkages between the disaster cycle and the strategic priorities of Catholic Charities USA. So affordable housing, integrated health and nutrition, immigration, refugee services, leadership development, social enterprise, and advocacy. So if we were just to take housing, you know, it's hard to plan for disaster housing when there's a real housing crisis during blue skies. So how can we as an agency advocate for, create opportunities for real dialogue and change to happen around a housing issue so that we can better prepare for housing for vulnerable populations during a disaster event? And then what does that look like for each of our other strategic areas? I think hopefully we will be awarded this grant, and then I think that the work accomplished during that grant will really provide a lot of fruit for the entire network as we work through those intersections of disasters and each of the strategic priorities. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Zach.
Thank you, Jen. Assuming no questions for Jen, if you do, go ahead and either interrupt or just type them in the chat box. But I'm just going to bring you a brief National VOAD update. First off, congrats to our peer agencies here in Raleigh, Florida, and Central and Northern Missouri. And VOAD, on occasion, has designated dollars they can sub-grant out to any kind of portion of the National VOAD movement. And by virtue of affiliation with Catholic Charities USA, these three agencies were able to be eligible for some of those opportunities. So congrats again to you all and the great work that you're doing. Obviously, the NVOAD conference this May was canceled. And I do just want to sound a note of resignation around that. Obviously not safe, but as I see many of these faces with videos here on our chat, I am reminded of how much I would have enjoyed spending time with this motley crew in the month of May, and obviously we didn't get to do that. So that's unfortunate, but obviously the right call was made there. Committee meetings will be occurring for those of you who are on National VOAD committees, June 15th through the 25th. And you'll be having communications from either your chair of said committee or an NVOAD staff on that meeting. Now, I probably should have stepped backward before that bullet point and mentioned that we do have representation on multiple national VOAD committees, which you see in the graphic on the right, from advocacy to disaster health, obviously disaster case management, long-term recovery groups. I won't read the list to you there, but the general idea is that NVOAD has what they call these standing ad hoc committees that touch on many items of interest relative to humanitarian disaster work. And that they always seem to have a reason to be getting together and talking about these issues. And it's open to any NVOAD member and state VOAD reps to be a part of these committees. And as they dovetail with interest areas that we have as the Catholic Charities Network, we want to make sure our voice is heard as a part of those discussions and that the needs of the network are brought forth as a part of those discussions and back and forth. So what you see there now is our representation for the 2020 to 2021 year that kicks off here this June as far as National VOAD's committee years are concerned. We have had, usually annually we'll send out an email to the community of practice, and I think we might also go to the diocesan directors as well that says, hey, this is something that we're a part of, it's a great chance to raise needs. Here's your committee rep name, contact information, all that good stuff, which we can do again, and I'm sure we will. But we found that there's still, not a lot of great engagement from the network around the ongoing work of these committees, and we know that folks are busy and certainly understand that. So we're additionally going to be contacting and connecting our leads with the relevant communities of practice for the different strategic priorities. And more information will be coming on that. So if any of you are a part of other communities of practice for those strategic priorities, you'll have a chance to engage with folks in those smaller settings with your committee reps. So that's just another way we're trying to make it easy to bring the national engagement to you all and have a chance to make sure that your needs are being heard and considered as a part of the National VOAD group. So that's all I have, pending any questions regarding the National VOAD update. And just thanks for all the great work you're doing. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Simona, who is going to walk through some small changes in our short-term grant report.
All right, get excited. Good afternoon, everyone. So the changes are pretty minor, but definitely we wanted to bring to your attention the changes that were made, and they were based on feedback that we received from the network, just in terms of how we can gather data in a more meaningful way. As you will notice, it's really section 3, which is the graphic to the right. Where we're going to ask for the total people count, which is something, it's not new. But what is new is that we're really trying to collect every piece of, service information. So for instance, you will notice under each category, there are actual descriptions in terms of, like, for transportation, we're not just asking, did you provide transportation to this one family? It's every instance that service was provided during your response or during your recovery. So again, really get a better handle or better picture on all of the work being done. And it actually reminds me of something that Philomena shared a little bit earlier when she was giving her report out, just in terms of the number of calls, in terms of the number of just again services, the number of times services were provided. We hadn't up until now really had that ability to collect that information. So this is just a small, but again, meaningful change that you can expect to see as it relates to the short-term disaster response grant report. Oh, sorry, forgot to ask if there were questions. I was just jumping along, but are there any questions in relation to this update? All right, hearing none, I'll pass it back over to Kim Virgo.
Okay, so we're going to just talk a second about aid. We have been very much looking forward to aid 2020, as it was going to be taking place in Baton Rouge. I have gone down, we identified a Hilton hotel there that's right on the Mississippi that is fabulous, and the local agency, of course, Catholic Charities in Baton Rouge, is fabulous, and everything was looking really, really nice. And we were so excited to get aid 2020 going, and then COVID-19 hit. And so we had to really sit back and consider the fact that agencies have cut back their budgets. Consider the fact that even though aid is scheduled for December, that we don't know if there's going to be a vaccine yet. We had to make decisions based on contract deadlines that we had. And so at the end of the day, we had to postpone our Baton Rouge adventure until 2021. So this year, we are going to continue with aid, but in a different format. Obviously, it's going to be virtual, like so many other things this year. But we are going to make it as interactive as possible. And Simona is working hard to make sure that it is interactive as possible. We will still be able to use our aid app. We believe that we can still do, we can still take polls from our aid app, and that we could still do our social distancing chats back and forth on our aid app. And so we'll have 3 days from December 1 to December 3rd to hear a plenary and break out into a couple workshops. We're looking at some software right now that will allow us to actually have breakout sessions where you can choose a workshop to be in during a time frame and then go to that session. So we are hoping that everyone will join in and just keep up with the training, with the engagement, with the relationship building. We'll probably have like an aid happy hour one day or something, just something where we can all get together. And because I think aid is more than just the training that we receive, it's the network and the camaraderie that we build as a network amongst each other. And that too is also important. So just know that aid this year is going to be aid light. And that next year we will resume with aid in November 29th through December 3rd in Baton Rouge. We do have those dates already locked in, and we're very much hoping that by then things will be back to a little bit more of a normal operation. So yeah, we're gonna do Aid Light. So again, if you have any questions or comments on that, you can leave it in the chat box about Aid. Okay. Next. Okay, here we are. You know, this is open forum. Questions, comments, concerns, anything that you wanted to say that you couldn't say before. Was it somebody, I think it was Melissa, put in the chat box she wanted to report out on things that she was doing in her agency? Melissa, are you still there?
Hi, Kim. I am still here.
Oh, great.
The biggest thing that I wanted to announce outside of, any services was just that FEMA has awarded us the Hope and Healing Crisis Counseling Program. So just like we did with Hurricane Sandy, all of the Catholic Charities diocese, we are doing that effort again together. So that was just kind of something a little different that I was excited to share.
Yeah, that's great news. And for other agencies, last week we put out an email to agency directors on where monies went in the state for the that can be accessed for the community service block grant, which includes the crisis counseling piece. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at that or know about it, please reach out to myself or Zach and we can make sure that you get that information. Any other comments or questions?
Kim, will there be CEUs given out for, first of all, it's good to see you. Second of all, will there be CEUs given out on the virtual?
You know what? We'll check into that. Simona, we can, I think we can totally check into that.
Okay, thanks.
Good question.
Carol.
Yes, Carol, I recognize you. Yes.
Yeah, my voice is sort of unique.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We can check on that for you.
Thanks, Kim.
I have a question. I don't know if it's a comment or a question, but it's basically an advocacy point about disaster case management. New York City VOAD and New York State VOAD together put out an advocacy letter directed to the governor of New York State, encouraging him and really asking him to make sure that he applies for federal funding for disaster case management. There's a little bit of a, I don't want to say rigmarole, but I am. As what always happens is, people trying to figure out, well, who's going to fund what, and if this is a national disaster and every state might be asking for case management funding at the same time, is that going to come through? I will say that in New York State, it still hasn't been requested yet as of Friday. So I just wanted to put that out there as a potential advocacy need for charities agencies.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We do know from the FEMA declarations that the only IA provision that has been approved for is the crisis counseling. No other IA provision has been approved. So even if a governor requests disaster case management, it might not even be considered. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't advocate. We have a really hotshot social policy department that's just phenomenal, and certainly we can bring it up with them and see what kind of movement can happen there.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Julianne, just to chime in real quick on that. Some governors have requested DCM and been told no. Not that, again, when the work through the state is not speaking against that at all, but just something to be aware of.
Anyone else?
I have I guess it's another advocacy concern. One of the things that came up around here for us is that just advocating for the elderly and just the condition they're in now. And I don't know if there's anything coming from Catholic Charities or the church in general about making sure we're taking care of them here, and it might just be a Louisiana thing. We might not have done it right, but there's just been a lot of concern about, I mean, these people haven't seen their families in months, and there's a lot of, and they're still getting sick. And so there's a lot of concern about that, and just wondering if we know of any advocacy that's come out of it.
So I don't know of any particular advocacy. I can tell you that that is really controlled at the state level. Whether you can access nursing homes, and I'm speaking from a very personal level. My mother is in an assisted living facility and is dying, and we cannot get in to see her. And in order to do that, we have to get permission from the state, and that hasn't been granted yet. So it is almost impossible. Our hearts are breaking just personally. And I know that that's being felt across the country with so many assisted living facilities and nursing homes. And yeah, I can't agree with you more. So there is some information available on our resource page. Simona, I know that maybe not everybody has access to the resource page. Can we make sure that that is provided to everybody as a follow-up to the call? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Nicole, thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else?
This is Daniel Altino down in Raleigh. I was curious, we're getting into using crisis cleanup and Corona community to do wellness checks, and I was curious if there are any other agencies that are involved in doing that would be interested in kind of sharing best practices and just coordinating around that use of that resource.
Okay. I'm not, is there anybody out there on this call now that is doing that? Okay, well, Daniel, we'll look around the network and see, and see what we can do. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
This is Jane. I just, in response to Dan, our only concern with crisis cleanup and their programs is confidentiality and security. You might want to check into that.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, Jane. Okay, any final comments? Great. Well, hearing none, I want to thank everybody for being on this call. We'll have another call in just a couple months. So stay tuned. It's good to see everybody, at least virtually. And we hope to connect with all of you soon. Thank you again for joining. We appreciate all the work that you're doing. Bye-bye.
Thank you.